Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is an Asus C200 Chromebook, which is a portable notebook, weighs about 2.5 pounds, has an 11.6-inch 1366 by 768 pixel display, and it has an Intel Bay Trail processor. This one has a Celeron N2830 dual-core CPU, uses about 7.5 watts, and helps this device get pretty extraordinary battery life, about 10 to 12 hours of use in my testing, depending on what you're using it for. Watching videos is going to run it down a little bit faster, and playing games and other CPU-intensive tasks. But overall, it's a pretty impressive device in terms of performance and battery life trade-off. It's not as fast as some Chromebooks that I've used, definitely not the fastest laptop available, and some people are going to have issues with Chrome OS, which is basically an operating system designed around a web browser. You do have support for apps. You can run Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, slides, and so forth. Of course, you can do online video from sites like YouTube, but it's not necessarily going to be able to run certain types of applications, desktop-style applications, and it only has 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of storage on the device itself. Now, you can use an SD card for extra storage if you want, but even though it is possible to do some neat things like installing Ubuntu on here, you're not going to have a lot of built-in storage. So if you wanted native desktop-style applications, you could get it by using Ubuntu or Debian or a different Linux operating system. But really, it's sold as, first and foremost, a browser-based device that does have some offline capabilities. There's a growing number of Chrome web apps that you can get to from the Chrome Web Store, which do allow you to do things even when you're offline. So if we go here to the Chrome Web Store, you'll see that there's a whole section of offline apps that you can download and install, and they'll sort of cache some data to your disk so that you can use it even when you don't have an internet connection. Camera app, Angry Birds video game, virtual turntable app, and so forth. So, Chrome OS, a lot of people like to think that it's not a full replacement for Windows, and maybe it's not, but it's a pretty capable OS. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do here. We've got full screen.
Similar features, but it's a little bit larger.
720p video playing here. You can see that there's a dedicated keyboard shortcut for volume keys, as well as for changing the screen size, maximize, minimize, and so forth, or switching between windows. So let's go ahead and tear off a tab, and you can see that we can switch between windows. Go ahead and pause that. Let's take a quick listen to the speakers. This is not exactly a perfect test, clearly, because you're listening to video being shot through my little camera, but the speakers are reasonably loud, pretty clear. They're not going to replace external speakers or headphones, but they'll do in a pinch if what you want to do is just sort of listen to a little bit of music or watch a video and not necessarily need to go get a different device. So, in terms of hardware, we've got HDMI output. You can connect an external display and either mirror your screen or extend your display. USB 3.0, SD card slot, and headset jack. And on the other side, we've got USB 2.0, so just 2 total USB ports. If you wanted to open up the case, you could do that. You can see a picture of what it looks like with the case opened at liliputing.com. On the bottom, you'll note that there's just a couple of screws, well, actually a whole bunch of screws holding things in place. But once you open it up, the only thing that you can really easily replace as an end user would be the wireless card. It has 802.11ac Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so not really a lot of reason to upgrade the wireless as it is, but it's something that you can upgrade. The RAM and the storage, on the other hand, are not easily upgraded by the end user. If you do need more than 10 or 12 hours of battery life, the charging cable is almost like a smartphone style cable. It's pretty thin, pretty light. It's not USB, it's a regular sort of laptop charging thing here, but instead of a big heavy power brick, you've got something that really does not weigh very much and doesn't take up a lot of space. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind. One is that it's got that 1366 by 768 pixel display, as I mentioned, and the viewing angles are a little bit less than stellar. So let's go ahead and go full screen here, and you'll see that head-on things look okay, but if you sort of tilt back the screen a little bit, colors wash out, and it can be a little bit difficult to see what's going on. Side viewing angles are a little bit better. but the screen also has a little bit of glare. So it's not necessarily going to be the best device for everybody crowding together and watching a movie side by side. But you can adjust the screen so that it's in the place you like. It doesn't have some of the premium features that you get on some Ultrabooks, like touchscreen capabilities, but it sells for about $249, so it's not a premium device. The keyboard, not a lot of flex if you push down too hard in the middle. It's got dedicated keys for your Chrome functions, as I mentioned. Decent travel. I find typing to be pretty comfortable. And Asus says that this multi-touch touchpad, which supports two-finger scrolling and other gestures, is about the size you would expect from a 14-inch laptop. I don't know if that's exactly true, but it's definitely nice and wide and responsive, so I have no problems using the touchpad, although you can also plug in an external mouse if you prefer. So, let's see, what else do we need to talk about? I guess the fact that, as I mentioned, it has a Bay Trail processor. So there are other Chromebooks that have ARM-based chips, or some that have Intel Celeron Haswell chips. You might get better performance out of some of the models with those Celeron processors, but you're not going to get the same kind of battery life. So I find that 7, maybe 8 hours of battery life with a Haswell Celeron processor. Surprisingly, most of the ARM-based models that I've tried so far have actually gotten less battery life than this guy. But so far, I've only really had a chance to test the models with Samsung's Exynos 5 dual-core CPU. The new Samsung Chromebook 2 models, which have Samsung's octa-core ARM-based processor, I haven't actually tested the battery life and the performance yet, so it's a little bit hard to say how this is going to compare against those or other upcoming devices. But in terms of trade-off, it doesn't do as well as in the benchmarks as the models with the Haswell chips. And in everyday performance, it's fast enough to get most tasks done. I don't have a lot of problem opening, websites and going to flipping between tabs, but you can see it's not necessarily the fastest device available. Now, some of it's going to depend on the speed of your internet connection. Which is possibly causing some of these things to load a little bit more slowly than I would like. But you can surf the web. I've got half a dozen browser tabs or so open here. From time to time, I have noticed that it slows down when I'm multitasking. So I've got lots of browser tabs open, and maybe I'm streaming music in one of them. And at that point, it might be a good idea to close a few tabs or reboot the device. So that's something I didn't necessarily have to do when I was testing devices like the Acer C720P with a Intel Celeron Haswell processor. But again, that gets several hours less battery life. So it's an interesting trade-off, especially in the low-cost device range. Now, I mentioned that you can also enter developer mode, and you can find more details about doing this at liliputing.com, and go into a different operating system. So here I've actually got Ubuntu loaded in a chroot environment, which allows me to run a full desktop-style operating system on a Chromebook. And you can see I've actually got the Firefox web browser up and running here. You can use applications like, let's see what we've got here under Office, the Abbey word processor. So you can do some offline activities using Linux if you're not content to just use the Chrome OS operating system. Again, 16 gigs of storage isn't a lot of space for storing your files and applications, but it's nice to have that option. Now, one quirk is normally you would be able to sort of exit this by using a keyboard shortcut and go straight back to Chrome OS. I found that on this particular device that doesn't work very well, so the easiest thing to do is just log out when I'm done, and that'll dump me back into Chrome OS. It's also possible to set this up so you can boot from a USB device. So if you wanted to replace Chrome OS with a different operating system, you might be able to do that. I haven't tested it myself. So it is a full-fledged computer. It's got the guts of a full-fledged computer, and it can run more than just Chrome OS if you want to, but it's really positioned as a device that's going to have this browser-based operating system, run web apps, including apps that you can download and store for offline usage. And that offers a certain level of security, too, in that most of your files are stored online. So if something happens to this device, or if you want to pick up where you left off on a different machine, it's pretty easy to do that. So in terms of getting long battery life, a portable machine, and decent but not spectacular performance, I think there's a lot to like about the Asus C200 Chromebook. This is Brad Linder with Liliputing.